Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today someone who has been arguably the sweetest of the CEOs of the Indian IT industry, and yet a sharp engineering brain at the same time with a legacy of Hughes Software Systems and Hughes Systique. He is most famously known amongst the older colleagues for being the head of the global R&D and engineering at Hughes Software Systems. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today the annoyingly charming and shockingly capable Vinod Sood. Vinod, you went to the Punjab Engineering College PEC in 1980 to study electrical and electronics. Now, those were the days when there were no telephones in the hostels. People used to actually write handwritten letters in the form of postcards and inland letters. Tell us something about those glorious days of that era in your college. Did you end up writing and or receiving love letters, or were you one of those studious chaps around?
Oh, so thank you, Prashant. In fact, it's a pleasure and a privilege to talk to you, and really, it's so nice to see you after such a long time. Uh, so yeah, so let me go back to 1984, right? That is when I passed out from PEC Chandigarh. So I was the batch of 1980-84, and as you rightly said, right, there were hardly any telephones. In fact, uh, I think you would have heard that, or you will know that, but the younger generation, when I tell them this, they just don't believe that it used to take 8 to 10 years to get a telephone connection. So those were the days in which we were living. I'll leave the love letters to some other day. Okay, but you are absolutely right. We used to use postcards and inland letters to communicate. So whether it was communicating with friends or family back home, my parents were in Delhi. Okay, and I went to Chandigarh for studies. So that was the means of communication, writing letters, postcards. So absolutely right.
How was it like in the college?
Oh, okay. I had a great time. Okay, and you said, were you one of those studious types? No, I was not. But incidentally, I was the gold medalist. I topped the batch of 1984 batch, and I was also the Punjab University medalist, as well as Institution of Engineers gold medalist. But surprisingly, and this is what a lot of my friends and batchmates used to tell me, that, and they used to call me Sood during those days, not Vinod. Okay, ki Sood, तू कब पढ़ता कब है? Because unlike some of the studious types, okay, who used to pretty much study day in and day out, attend all the classes, have 100% record, I used to be like, okay, I am in college. I have to study and do well, but then I also should take part in whatever other activities. And we had a number of clubs. Okay, I also was member of the student executive council. Okay, and participated in a number of other activities. Okay, and used to study just before the examinations, I would say.
In 1985, you joined the premier organization of the country, the Center for Development of Telematics, CDOT, where you joined as a software engineer in 1985 and rose to become a senior program manager in 1991. Tell us, how were you selected for CDOT, and what was it like working with Sam Pitroda around for all those years?
Okay, so Prashant, I'll give you some background in terms of how CDOT happened. Okay, as I said, I graduated in 1984, and as part of the campus placement, I got an offer from Siemens, and we are talking about 80s. Okay, early 80s. Siemens was one of the handful of multinationals. Okay, operating in India during those days, and getting an offer from Siemens was like, nowadays you have this concept of, right, dream job, right, or whatever. So it was like that. Okay. And obviously I was very happy. Multinational, I was assigned in what is called as the control and the automation systems group. So for a electrical and electronics engineer, right, that kind of group was something which one was looking forward to. And being a multinational, the salary also was pretty good. So I joined Siemens in 1984, I think in the month of August or whatever, just after my engineering. Uh, but within 3 months of joining, I realized that the kind of job which I am doing, this is not something which I would do or which I would like to do all my life. And mind you, there's nothing wrong with the job. As I mentioned, I was placed in the control automation systems group. I was a project engineer trainee. So basically, process industries, whether it's a fertilizer industry or a cement industry or a oil refinery, in those process industries, right? How do you provide control automation capabilities using Siemens SCADA systems? Okay. So that was the kind of job. But I was not very excited because there was no new quote unquote R&D product development kind of opportunities there. That was one part. The second, my manager was very good because typically, what are the reasons why one is not happy or one would think that this is not something which I would like to do my entire life. Either you're not happy with the job, or for some reason or the other, you're not happy with the team or your manager. But these were none of the issues, right? But the only thing was, I had this desire, this burning desire that I should be involved in some product development, something to do with technology, some R&D kind of a stuff. So this was going on in my mind. And I remember just around the time of Diwali, so it must be October or November, I read an article in India Today, the magazine India Today. And this article was a one-page article which talked about an NRI, Sam Pitroda, who had come to India and who had made a pitch to Mrs. Indira Gandhi, who was our prime minister at that point of time, that India should not be dependent on Western countries or Western multinationals for their needs of switching systems. As you know, a switch is something, right, which enables one telephony user to talk to the other telephony user, right? That connection is done by a switch. And the earlier generation of the switches were manual switches, and then from the manual switches, right, you got onto electromechanical switches. And sometime in late 70s, okay, with computers coming into the play, right, uh, some of the companies in West, notably AT&T, Bell Labs, Nortel, Siemens, right, Ericsson, they started developing what were called the computerized switching systems. Okay. So here the switch is controlled by a computer. And what Sam Petroda was telling Mrs. Gandhi was that India needs to invest in designing and developing its own switching system technology. And now, with the computers becoming mainstream, right, the next generation of the switching systems will be computer based switches. Okay. And if we continue depending on the Western countries and multinationals, what is going to happen is that they will keep giving us a technology which is one generation older. and that too at very, very high price points. And in the same article, it was written that apparently Mrs. Gandhi was very impressed with what Sam had pitched, and there was a cabinet note, okay, based on which the government of India decided to set up a R&D institution in India called CDOT, which Sam Pitroda will head. And the mandate for CDOT was to design, develop, and deploy a central office computerized switching system, okay, which will take care of the needs of Indian telecom network for the next foreseeable future. And I read that article and I said, man, this is something which, if I can become part of this initiative, right, if I can become part of this development, this product development, this computerized switching system development, I'll be so happy. So I read that article and that was it. But lo and behold, uh, 6 months down the line, sometime in the month of February or March, I see an advertisement. I think it was either Times of India or Hindustan Times. It was one of these newspapers that there is this R&D institution, CDOT, which has been set up by Government of India. And the advertisement was that it was in the process of hiring young, bright engineers who would participate in the design development of this next generation computerized switching system, which CDOT has been mandated to build. And they were looking for software engineers for their Delhi center and hardware engineers for the Bangalore center. And I said, okay, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I had read few months back in India Today, and see, there is this advertisement. So I immediately applied. Okay. I applied to that advertisement. I was lucky that even though I had not done computer science, in the name of computer science, I had just done one course in Fortran. Okay. And during our days, there was no separate stream as far as computer science was concerned. So I had done electrical and electronics. Okay. And as part of that, one course which was somewhat related to computers was a course on Fortran. Okay. That is what I had done. So I was not very even sure whether I'll get a call for an interview, but I got a call for this interview. And the interview panel were senior scientists from Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, TIFR. So anyhow, to cut the long story short, I went over the interview. I got a joining call, okay, to join as a software engineer for CDOT Delhi. And I was very happy. I said, man, this is great. And this is once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. So I resigned from Siemens. And the reaction, whether it was my friends, whether it was my colleagues, whether it was my parents or seniors, was because CDOT was not heard of, right? And it was not even that classical government job in the sense that you are going into IAS or IPS, right? Which was something which was aspirational for many people. It was some institution set up by the government of India, right? You don't even know what's going to happen to that institution. And here you are leaving a multinational, right? But anyhow, as I said, I was very clear that this is what I wanted to do. And CDOT was giving me that opportunity to pursue what I really wanted to do. So I joined CDOT as a software engineer. And I was very fortunate. We were part of the initial core team which Sam Pitroda had set up. So we got an opportunity to work pretty much directly with Sam, as well as folks from TIFR and some folks from the telecom R&D center of the Department of Telecom, which was in parallel trying to do some of the R&D in this area. So that is how I got into CDOT and started working in CDOT. Got an opportunity to work with Sam Petroda. It was a lifetime experience. The kind of learnings which we had, okay, working at CDOT, working closely with Sam, and some of the things which we did were things which were unheard of, right? In 80s, in terms of open culture, in terms of flexible timings, in terms of calling each other, calling your seniors on the first name basis, very flat kind of organization, no hierarchy, quarterly meetings, open town halls, right? And also on the other side, opportunity to work on uh, building, designing a digital computerized switch. And to tell you, Prashant, during those days, there were only 6 or 8 organizations worldwide, okay, who had this technology or who were working on this technology. And one of the organizations, okay, which all of us, right, have a lot of right regard for was Bell Labs, which was working on this. And in fact, it used to be said during those days that in terms of the engineering complexity, designing and building a central office computerized switch is second only to putting a man in space. So you can imagine in terms of, right, the excitement we had working for such an organization and on such a mission.
Wonderful. And yet, in 1992, after a proud journey with CDOT, you joined Hughes Software Systems. Tell us how that happened. And was it because of getting bored or disillusioned somewhere down the line working in a slow government organization or a fat paycheck in the private sector or both?
Okay, yeah. So interesting question. And again, it was a number of things which happened, let me tell you. Okay. One, as I said, the mission for CDOT was to build a central office switch. Okay. And in 1990, okay, as part of my journey at CDOT, okay, I was assigned the responsibility to be the program manager for the large switch. And the large switch definition was a switch which is 10,000 lines, and a switch which can handle a busy hour call attempt, BHCA, in the telephony parlance of more than 1 lakh busy hour call attempts. And as program manager, my responsibility was to cut across the software group, the hardware group, the systems group, okay, and make sure that everything comes together and we can get this switch field trialed, okay, and then get the DOT, Department of Telecom. Within Department of Telecom, there were two bodies. One was the QA, okay, and another body was the DOT TEC, which is the Telecom Evaluation Committee. So any central office switch which was to be rolled out into the telecom network and which was to be cleared for large scale deployment and production had to get a stamp of approval from DOT TEC and then go through a evaluation and a QA process by DOT QA. And as a program manager, and this was a big responsibility, I was just 6 or 7 years out of college, okay, but I was given this responsibility to coordinate, okay, because as you know, in some of these complex programs, right, when you start doing trials in the actual field situation, there are a number of things which come up which you may not have seen when you were doing the testing in the labs. And most of the times what happens is there is a tussle between the hardware group and the software group, right? And you know this very well. The software guys say that it's a hardware problem, and the hardware guys say no, 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 we have done whatever was to be done. Okay, we have tested it very well, and it must be some software bug. Okay, and the software guys they introduce a lot of bugs because they don't test and blah blah blah, right? Okay, so as a program manager, that was my responsibility to get everyone together with a very clear objective that we need to get the problem solved so that we can get the DOT to give us the certificate. Okay, and this field trial was happening. The site which was assigned to us was a place in Bangalore called Alsur. Okay, and the lines which were the telephone lines which we were catering to were all the commercial establishments on the MG road. And typically what used to happen was, and this was the first field trial for this kind of a switch, okay, which we had designed and developed entirely out of India. And what used to happen was that at 11 o'clock or 11:30 in the morning, the switch used to crash. And as we started debugging, we found that that is the time when most of these commercial establishments, right, most of these shops on MG Road, right, they used to open, and that is when they would start calling, okay, or start picking up the phone. And suddenly the switch used to get overloaded. So, anyhow, that was something which we had never experienced in the lab because that kind of a scenario had never occurred in the lab. So once that scenario came in the field, we all worked very hard overnight over the next few months to solve that problem. Okay, and finally we were able to get the DOT QA to approve our switch from the telecom evaluation committee. Also, we were able to get a certificate that the switch is worthy of being deployed in the Indian telecom network, and it is ready for large scale production. And this technology can be transferred to the manufacturers of the switch. And I still remember in December of 1991, Mr. Rajesh Pilot, he was the Minister of Telecom, and he's no longer with us, right? He actually dedicated this switch to the nation. And that was a big event. So he made a call, right, from Bangalore to the telecom secretary in Delhi, which went through the switch which we were field trialing. And after the successful call, he formally dedicated the switch to the nation. So that was a formal kind of a occasion. Okay. And for me, that was a big milestone. Okay. So to answer the question in terms of what I had set for myself, right, that I would like to do, one was obviously that I should be part of the team which designs and develops and be part of this product development out of India. So that had happened. But then, in terms of the next objective, what I had set for myself was that I have to make sure that whatever has been assigned to me as the program manager to get this switch field worthy and get the DOT QA approval, I have done that. And even the minister has dedicated the switch to the nation. Okay. So as far as my what should I say in terms of the target which I had set for myself, I had achieved that, a big milestone. So I was very happy with that. Okay. So that was one thing. Other thing which had started happening, and this has started happening sometime in 1989. Okay, there was a change in the political dispensation in the country, and the new minister who had come, okay, was not very supportive of the kind of initiative which CDOT had been mandated, indigenous development, okay. And Sam also, right, that there was some kind of a uh, I should not say there was some kind of a disagreement between the minister and Sam. Okay, Sam by that time had moved to the Telecom Commission and had taken a bigger role as a telecom secretary. So because of all this, right, there was some kind of a politicizing which had started happening around CDOT also. The kind of support which CDOT was earlier enjoying was no longer there. And even though CDOT was a government organization, but till that time, right, it was very unlike a typical government organization. It was a very, very project driven kind of organization with a very clear mandate, a budget. Okay. But things started changing in 1989, 1990 timeframe because of the reasons which I talked about now. So these two things came together. As far as I was concerned, I was happy and satisfied that whatever I had taken up, I have delivered that. Okay, which in itself was a very big milestone. And on the other hand, obviously, some of us, because of what we were seeing at CDOT, and we being the very early guys, right, who had seen the best of times at CDOT, we were not very happy. Having said that, some of us tried, in fact, influencing and changing what was happening, but you can appreciate it was beyond us. It was beyond us. So this is what was happening, I would say, 1990, 91. And if you remember, 91 was the time when Mr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister and Mr. Narasimha Rao was our prime minister, and the entire process of economic liberalization started, right? That opening up happened. And with that opening up, a lot of multinationals, okay, started coming to India to start their core R&D centers in India. So again, in 1992, what I got to know was that Hughes, and we had heard about Hughes from the Howard Hughes, right, the aviator, right, that maverick genius, right, who had started Hughes, and we had that image of Hughes, right, Hughes aircraft and satellites. And again, when I got to know that Hughes is going to start their engineering R&D center in India, okay, I said that'll be something which will be very interesting and exciting. And so things came together, right? I had achieved a milestone. Things at CDOT were not very I would say enabling, okay, in terms of the overall environment, okay. And India was opening up. Hughes decided to set up a engineering R&D center, and that too, unlike other multinationals who were starting in Bangalore, they decided to start in Delhi. Okay. And I, at that point of time, for personal reasons or whatever, I was not looking at relocating to Bangalore or any other place outside Delhi. So all these things, they came together, and I decided to join Hughes. And that was so. In fact, I again an advertisement applied. Uh, Got a call for an interview. Anil Sharma interviewed me. Anil, if you remember, he was our first president and managing director. He was a long time Hughes employee, and Pradman, who was the CEO of Hughes, had asked Anil to come and set up Hughes software systems in India. So Anil interviewed me, and in fact, very interestingly, this interview happened in Moria Sheraton, and we were in a room, right? And India-Pakistan match was going on in parallel, right? And Anil was talking to me, and he also was watching the match. So after about 45 minutes, Anil tells me that, yeah, Vinod, I'm very happy with you. And we would like to make you an offer. So what is your expectation? So I said, Anil, I don't know in terms of I've been working in CDOT. Okay, so I don't know what is in terms of the private industry, what is the kind of norm. So whatever, yeah. So he said, okay, we will make you an offer, but then Vinod, we actually also then yeah, what he said was that we are going to have within engineering four groups. And he said one of the groups, we have one of our Hughes guys, Neeraj Tiwari, who is going to come to India, and he is going to head that group. Okay. Another group, which is going to be around networking, data networking, we have already talked to an individual from TCS, and we are going to make him an offer. And he was talking about Amitabh Roy. Okay. And there is going to be the satellite group, which I want you to lead. Okay, so we'll make you an offer. But then we have one more group, and do you know somebody who can be considered for that group? And that is going to be the wireless group. So I said, yeah, I have a friend back in CDOT, and me and Mao and Adesh, we were very close friends in CDOT. And in fact, Mao and Adesh knew that I had gone for this interview to a company called Hughes. So I said, yeah, there is this friend, Manoranjan Mahapatra, and I think he'll be a great fit. So Anil said, okay, so why don't you tell him to send his resume? Then Anil said one more thing. By the way, Vinod, we are also looking for somebody in HR. So can you suggest someone? So I said, Anil, I have another friend, Adesh. So that is how I got interviewed, and Anil told me that they are going to give me an offer, and I referred or introduced Adesh and Mao. And pretty much, yeah, we all joined. So in fact, Adesh joined HSS a day before me. The way we resigned and the relieving and all that at CDOT happened, Adesh got relieved before me, so he could join a day before me, even though I was interviewed first, and I had introduced both Adesh and Mao to HSS.
So I applaud you, Vinod, for that fascinating story. The way you narrated it seemed like it just happened yesterday. And I'm sure people are loving it. Uh, and in Hughes Office Systems, HSS, you were heading, as you said, the satellites networking division during the 90s. You were colleagues and competitors with the likes of Mao in the DCN, Digital Cellular Networks division, and Amitabh Roy in the ENS, the Enterprise Networking Systems division. Tell me, beyond the friendly gestures, was there a cutthroat competition amongst you guys? How do you now recall your relationship with Mao and everybody else at HSS?
So Prashant, yeah, and I'll be very open and frank. So as I told you, Mao and Adesh, we had known each other since 1985, right? So we were very close friends. And I had referred, in fact, I had introduced Mao and Adesh. Okay. Amitabha, in terms of experience, in terms of age, was senior to us. Okay. So even though in terms of the organization hierarchy levels, we were same, but we always had a lot of regard for Amitabha because of his age and his experience. We were just about 7 or 8 years experience at that point of time in 1992. I had all of 8 years of experience after my college. Okay, so we had great relationship. There was, I can tell you, there was no competition. There was no cutthroat competition. Okay. Now, as things started evolving and as HSS started growing, and you'll remember, uh, in till about 1995, 96, we were just doing work for Hughes Network Systems in US. And in 95, 96, right, we decided that it will be a great idea if we can go and pitch these engineering R&D services to other telecom OEMs. And in fact, I can tell you that way the Hughes leadership was a visionary, right? All other companies, they did not even venture on that path. Whereas the Hughes leadership was very open and they said, oh, as long as you do not go and pitch these services to our direct competitor. And that was something great because with that we continued growing, right? So what happened over the years was that it became very clear that Amitabha wanted to do more of products. Mao said, because now we wanted to go and do these services for other customers, there was a need for setting up a sales and a business development organization. And Mao wanted to do business development. And as far as I was concerned, I was very clear and very happy, given that at heart I was an engineer. Okay, I wanted to continue to be an engineer or drive engineering. So, Prashant, the way things panned out was that all the engineering groups got consolidated. What Amitabha was doing in ENS, what Mao was doing in WND, and what I was doing in SND became one engineering and R&D group, which I was asked to lead as head of engineering and R&D. Mao moved out of engineering, okay, and he was asked to set up a sales, marketing, and the business group organization, okay. And Amitabha started looking at what are the kind of products or IPs which HSS can look at. And Neeraj, as you know, he was very clear that after 2 or 3 years, he wanted to go back to US, to HNS. So that way, things just panned out very well, right? All of us, we got into different roles and roles which actually we wanted to do. So that way, there was no competition or this thing which many times happens in many other organizations that for you to grow, you have to pull somebody down. Okay. That never happened, I would say. And we
Excellent.
are we are still great friends, right? Amitabha is now settled in Bangalore, so we are in touch. Whenever I go to Bangalore, I try to meet Amitabha. Me, Mao, and Adesh, right? We meet very frequently. Again, we try to meet at least once a quarter.
You might have partially answered my next question, but playing to the galleries, I'd still ask you. You rose to become the corporate VP and global head of engineering and R&D at Hughes Software Systems (HSS), which in
Right.
itself is a big deal. However, Mao rose to become the president and COO of HSS. Do you think that you were in the race too somewhere to become either the president and the CEO of Hughes, or perhaps even the CEO after Arun Kumar, the then president and the CEO when he passed away? And were you disappointed when you weren't the chosen one?
Okay. So again, Prashant, I'll answer this question, and again, I'll share few things which very few people know. Okay. So one, you're right. Mao became the COO of Hughes Software Systems, not the president. Uh, Arun Kumar remained the president and managing director. CEO PMD was Arun Kumar, and Mao became the chief operating officer. Till the time it was Hughes Software Systems, Mao did not become the president. Okay, and I'll tell you what happened. So Anil again, okay, he came to me. And he said, and this was a time when HSS had decided to go public. We were in the process of doing our IPO. It was 1999. Okay. So Anil came to me and he said, Vinod, now the organization has grown, right? We are going to do this IPO. We are going to become a public listed company. So in fact, we also will have to do some bit of reorganization. We will have to beef up the structure, and we will have to appoint a chief operating officer, okay, who can look at the day-to-day operations, because Arun, right, who is the CEO, once we became public, he will have to spend a lot of time as the public face of the company, right? And he said, Vinod, I like both of you. Both of you are good, okay? But then we all will have to accept this reality that there can be only one COO. Okay? And we have decided that that position will be given to Mao. Okay? So what do you say? So I said, Anil, you people have decided on whatever basis, and I'm fine with that, and I'm happy, and I am head of engineering. So from that perspective, still 80-85% of the organization is my baby, right? And I like working with people. Okay. So I'm fine with that decision, and that there is no issue. And then Anil also said that as part of this reorganization, you will continue reporting to Arun, who is the PMD, right? So pretty much, right, other than the designation, which Mao will be the CEO, right, you will be the corporate VP, and Adesh will be the, again, the VP HR, right? But pretty much in terms of who you are reporting to, it remains same. It is Arun, right? So that that was the thing which went behind. Okay. So that was fine, and we accepted that, and in fact we had a very collaborative relationship. Mao was, as you know, as CEO, his prime responsibility was sales, marketing, business development, to get business. Okay, and to be fair to Mao and to give credit to Mao, right? Even though he was the CEO, right, he never ever, right, interfered within my organization, right? As far as engineering was concerned, I always had a free hand, right? Uh, all my engineering reports, right? Uh, I used to review their work. I used to assign what they have to do. I used to set their objectives, and Mao never ever interfered in that kind of thing. He concentrated. He focused on business development, sales, and marketing. And we had a collaborative relationship in the sense that whatever, as part of sales, he used to go out and commit, or his team used to go out and commit. You remember, uh, some of us used to make sure that we deliver, we not just meet, exceed expectations. Sometimes it used to be very tough, right? You remember the Nokia PCU, right? And in your chat with Pratyush, you talked about that, right? So that was it.
Excellent, and thanks for being really candid out here. But let me take you to the time when when the time when HSS was being bought over by Flextronics, and there was a rumor at that time that you, along with the other guys like Arun, Mao, and Adesh, and I'm sure many other employees, contemplated a management buyout. So is it true that this was contemplated ever? And if it was indeed thought about, why did it clearly not materialize?
Absolutely right. Uh, we had contemplated this, and in fact, Pratman, Anil, and Pradeep, along with the management team at HSS, we were very, very excited that if we can put together some kind of a structure through which, right, the management control of the company remains between us, right? Some kind of a, as you say, MBO. And we were working towards that. But in parallel, what also was happening was, because as you know, Hughes, right, was sold. Hughes was a General Motors company, and General Motors had sold Hughes to Rupert Murdoch, News Corp, right? And News Corp's interest in Hughes was retaining one of the Hughes companies called DirecTV and selling rest of Hughes. But instead of selling the rest of Hughes as one piece, right, they decided to cut Hughes into various strategic pieces. And the intent was that each of those strategic pieces will fetch them a huge premium, right? So that way, Hughes Software was being positioned, right, as a software engineering R&D services company to be sold. Now, if we were all in parallel, as we were trying to put together some kind of a structure around this buyout management by the management team, there were other entities who were interested in acquiring us. And they were directly working with News Corp and the News Corp bankers in terms of putting together bids. And suddenly, one fine day, what we hear is that a company called Flextronics, and we had till then never heard about Flextronics, is very eager to put a bid, and they want to come to HSS to do a very quick due diligence. And we heard this in the afternoon, and we were told that next day they are going to visit us. And they came, and within 2 days, okay, this is unimaginable, the company of our size or whatever, right? Within 2 days, they put in a bid. And the kind of bid which they put, right, uh, at that point of time, Hughes Software Systems was sold to Flextronics at an enterprise value of $650 million. This was in 2004, 650. Today we talk about unicorns, right? During those times, 650 million. In fact, it was the largest cross-border technology transaction till that time in India. The sale of Hughes Software Systems to Flextronics. So we could not do anything because that was the kind of bid they had made, which was almost 40% premium to the prevailing share price of Hughes Software Systems. And later on, Prashant, and I don't know, what we heard was that there were a couple of folks from the HSS team, okay, who aligned with Flextronics. And that gave Flextronics this comfort and confidence to put that kind of a bid and acquire us within just 2 or 3 days, okay, which typically will not happen. Now we don't know who these one or two guys were, or whether it is true or it's a rumor. But you're right, okay. We were very interested in doing that kind of an MBO, and if that had happened, right, uh, it would have been something different, right?
Absolutely. It's very nostalgic and it was a major crossroad. But here we are now. And let's lighten up our mood a little bit. And, I got a surprise package for you. So I'm going to play out a message from someone for you. And I'm sure you'd recall her instantly and so on. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I'll share my screen and then play it out. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
When I
Pooja.
first joined Hughes Software, honestly, I was just about to leave. But the openness of the open environment of the place and support extended by everybody around Adesh, Indra, Neeraj Tiwari, everybody, and of course, Vinod Sood was so remarkable that it made the tenure not only a memorable one but a beautiful learning journey. He not only helped me develop my professional skills, helped me to recognize, gave me the freedom to take on my responsibilities, take on onus of whatever I did, gave me freedom, stood by me. At this point, I do remember a small little thing wherein it was a senior director where we had taken up a new building and I was responsible to allocate all seats. I'd done everything, but somehow it so happened that there was a disagreement. No, his input was not taken. I didn't want a confrontation, and I said, told Vinod, I said, okay, we will manage it. But he said, no. If you've taken it, if you've done everything by the book, if you followed all the protocol, then please do not avoid confrontation. Stand by what you did go by and that you've done it and you've done it with the protocol followed. So, yeah, these are very small things, but they make a huge difference. Professionally, he would never give any leverage. What he wanted on time, he wanted on time. And the best was his human side to him. He was there when I had a death in the family. He was there when I was getting married to my husband, been very supportive. Even after years later, when I called him up randomly and I was told that he was in a meeting, I was leaving a message, just say that Pooja called. And the female voice over there said, the same Pooja who worked here? I said, yep. And he was very thoughtful enough to take the call. Meant a lot. It's been a privilege to work with him, a man of his caliber, and I'm grateful for the invaluable skills and perspectives that he's contributed. So, yep, thank you. And may many more benefit from his experience and his advice. Take care.
Well, so there you
Oh,
go.
thank you, Prashant. And thank you, Pooja.
You're welcome. And it was, Pooja was getting emotional over there. And that is, the effect which you had on your employees. And that really brings me, to my next question as well. Would you like to recall some of the interesting stories, like Pooja mentioned, and your accomplishments at Hughes Software Systems, HSS? And when you look back at all those years, is it a feeling of contentment or regret or any other feeling? And by the way, who was the senior director over there? Was it Karan Kasturi?
Yep. Okay.
All right.
For sure, no regrets. I I I am very happy, very content with what uh, we all did at Hughes Software. The, the company, the institution which we built. Okay, and if you remember, Prashant, during 90s and early 2000, right? Hughes Software was the company to be part of, right? Every aspiring engineer, and especially telecom engineers or engineers who wanted to do some kind of high tech work, right? They wanted to be part of HSS, right? So, very happy, very content with what we did. Now, in terms of some of the accomplishments, uh, I remember three or four. For example, with Hughes Network Systems, right? Uh, you'll remember Inmarsat early entry system project. So that was the first fixed price project which we signed with HNS with Matthew Mohebe, and it was a $1 million project which we signed. Typically with HNS, right, we used to work on a time and material kind of concept that we will have X number of engineers and we'll get paid for those number of engineers. So that was something which we did. very early in my stint at Hughes Software, when I was still a designer engineer, my team, I used to handle two programs in the S&D times. One was the personal Earth Station, which was the VSAT system, and second was the CLARCOM system, the cellular air to ground communication system. And I remember Abhik and Abhijit and Prabir, all these guys were part of the Clarcom team. And Matthew had given us, even though it was a young team, he had given us responsibility to design, develop the entire call handling. And I was that time in India, and these guys had gone to Germantown to do a flight test, okay, a real flight test. And I get a call that we have been able to make the first call from air to ground for a commercial airliner. And this was entirely the software, the functionality was done by my team at HSS. So that is something I remember, right? And that time I even was involved in some of the key design discussions and decisions. This was sometime, I think, in 96, 97, very early, right? Then, even though I was part of engineering, head of engineering and business development and marketing now as a separate function, but the Nokia relationship, okay, I was a very key part of the team which got the first project from Nokia. We were introduced to Nokia obviously by Pradeep and Pradman, because HNS used to have a very strong relationship with Nokia, and Nokia used to get some of their radio designed and developed uh, by HNS. And then at some point of time, apparently Pradeep told the senior folks at Nokia that we have this company in India, right, which is doing some great software development for us. And why don't you guys also look at them for your software development needs? And based on this, the Nokia guys said, okay, well, why don't you guys send a team? And I took the team, and that team was I was leading that team, and CP Murli was part of that team, and we had Abhik, and we had Ashok Kumar. You remember Ashok Kumar?
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
brilliance of Ashok
Oh
Kumar and
yeah, brilliant techie, right, at the system engineering level, right? And we went to the Nokia headquarters, and we pitched whatever we, till then most of the stuff which we had to talk about was what we used to do for HNS, right? And based on that, the engagement with Nokia started. So even though I was not in sales and marketing, I have this pleasure that the relationship with Nokia, which developed into the largest account for HSS and later for FSS and Erisent, was started by me. Similarly, on the non-HNS side, the first fixed price, $1 million job, I got that. I, along with Raj Bajaj, who was heading the sales for Asia Pacific, I, along with Raj Bajaj, we went to NEC Japan and got the project for the HLR. So these are some of the notable achievements, I would say, as far as my tenure at HSS was concerned, other than obviously building a very strong engineering, R&D, and delivery team in terms of the quality of people, right? I can say some of the best people in the industry, not just in India, anywhere in the world. We were able to put together that kind of talent, that kind of brain power under one roof.
with all these feathers in your cap, in 2005, you left Hughes and founded another company called Hughes Systique Corporation. Wasn't that like, and forgive me for saying this, backstabbing Hughes? then at that time it was Flextronics, because Hughes Systique took away a lot of business from Hughes Network Systems, HNS, which would otherwise have remained with Flextronics and later Addison. Instead, you chose to become competitors with the company, which brought you to the zenith of your career. Above all, whose idea was Hughes Systique?
Okay, so again, thanks, Prashant, for asking this question, because again, this gives me an opportunity to clear the air. Okay, because you asked this question, so I'm sure there'll be lot many people who also will have something related in their minds, right? So first, let me tell you how Hughes Systique started, or from where this idea came. Okay. And I'll go back to the earlier question where we were talking about, right, how Rupert Murdoch, right, uh, decided to sell Hughes in pieces, okay, keeping DirecTV with them, right? So, and all this was happening between 2002, 2003, and 2005. Okay. And Hughes software system, as I mentioned, was sold to Flextronics. Similarly, another part of Hughes, which was their set-top box business, okay, was sold to Thomson. Okay. And after all this cutting and chopping, what was left of Hughes in US was the core satellite communication part of Hughes. And which, as you know, Hughes was the market leader. Hughes was pioneer in some of those technologies. And what Hughes management at that point of time decided was that anyhow, Rupert Murdoch News Corp is going to sell us off, right? And the obvious buyer is going to be somebody who till now has been our competitor. Okay. One of the satellite companies, right? So the Hughes guys, they said that maybe what we should do is, if we can get a financial investor, okay, who can buy out Rupert Murdoch News Corp stake, and that way Hughes again becomes pretty much an independent company, right? And they bought in Apollo private equity guys. So Apollo in a way acquired Hughes in US, the Hughes network systems, okay. And once that happened, the thinking at Hughes at the top executive level was that a lot of their core engineering IP, which was happening at Hughes Software, if you see, right? We used to be pretty much extension of the HNS engineering R&D teams, right? We used to, unlike a lot of other MNC centers in India, who used to do very low end kind of work, at HSS HNS, the relationship was very different, right? We were pretty much doing everything, right? So the thinking now at Hughes was that a lot of that core IP engineering is being done in a company where we do not have any ownership, we do not have any control, because the company had become Flextronics, right? And they felt that that's a big risk. Okay. And another thing was that Flextronics was a contract equipment manufacturer in the electronics and telecom space. So Hughes maybe also had this thing in their mind that tomorrow, with access to that core IP, all you know, if Flextronics decides to, on their own, develop some products and compete with them. So they said that it's time for us to start a engineering R&D development center like we did in 1992 as HSS in India again. Okay, so that is something which happened within Flextronics, and by that time, right, we all were now Flextronics software systems. We were no longer Hughes. And what some of us started seeing was that in terms of the environment, in terms of the culture, in terms of the kind of flexibility and freedom we had with Hughes, all that had started changing. And I'm not saying whether that was right or wrong. Flextronics was a very different company, right? Their DNA was manufacturing, right? So the environment we were used to, work environment, the culture we were used to, and what we had ourselves, right, built over the years, right? The kind of importance we had in terms of taking our decisions, right? We were seeing that all that had started going away. So to tell you the truth, some of us were not very excited, not very happy with the way things were panning out. And heart of heart, in our mind, at least I was very clear that I don't think I am going to continue with Flextronics for long. So one fine day, I get a call from Anil that Vinod, as we had started in 1992, Hughes Software, right? Now again, we are at a stage where we have to start in India, right? Because a lot of our development, the new development, right, which a lot of new products, we just can't now think of getting those products done somewhere where we do not have any control or ownership. So would you be willing to again look at Hughes? And Anil then made one more statement. He said, Vinod, way back in 1992, I had to come to India to set up Hughes Software Systems because you people did not have that kind of experience, right? But now you have all the experience. In fact, you have built the engineering R&D team, 3,000 plus people at HSS. Okay. So we are not going to come to India and you be the MD for India. We will take care of business development, getting the funding, whatever is needed. And that is how the idea for Hughes Systique came up. So it was two things, right? One, Hughes wanted, was very clear that the new engineering R&D which they have to do, they wanted to do it in a company where they have some ownership and control. And some of us who were part of HSS, now FSS, were not very excited with the way we were seeing things on the work environment, on the culture, on the freedom. Okay, right. And all these things came together and we started Hughes Systique. The only difference which we had this time was that we said that earlier, right, whatever we had done for General Motors. We had built that value for General Motors because Hughes was a General Motors company. And so in that sense, Hughes Software Systems also was a General Motors company. But this time we said that, okay, we will come in as co-founders. So we'll also have some equity stake in the new company. And Hughes in US will come in as an anchor investor and an anchor customer. So unlike HSS, where Hughes Software Systems was a 100% owned subsidiary of HNS, Hughes Systique started like any other startup with Hughes as one of the key investors and customers. And at that point of time in 2005, we had another company, US company called Nextwave Wireless, who came in as the second investor and customer for Hughes Systique. So this is how Hughes Systique was formed. And I can tell you, right, far from it, right, we did not take any business from FSS or later Ascent. In fact, you will be surprised. Okay. Uh, Now it's part of Capgemini, right? Because Edison was taken over by Eltron and Eltron was taken over by Capgemini. And still some of the work which we used to do as part of HSS for HNS, it continues happening at Capgemini. And HNS still is a customer, but this is all the legacy work. In fact, to tell you, and in the early years, a lot of my employers and a lot of folks from the industry used to ask me that Hughes Systique is a Hughes company, right? So why does Hughes still continue giving work to Edison? And Prashant, the real answer is Pradman and Pradeep and Anil. I would say they are very nice people. So actually, it's the other way, right? If it had been anyone else, any other setup, right? Immediately after setting up their company, they would have moved all the work to their company. They did not do that. And in fact, when Hughes Systique was started, we were told very clearly that whatever Hughes is doing at FSS, that work will continue. If those products at some point of time they go end of life, and as part of that there is a ramp down, so be it. But we are not going to take any existing work which is happening there and give it to Hughes Systique. So now you can imagine, right? It was actually the other way. So I am thankful to you that you asked me this question so that I could clarify, right, what the reality is. And in fact, today also, there is some amount of work, right, which continues happening at Capgemini.
That's quite a revelation, Vinod. But I must ask you this as well. When you worked at Hughes Systique, when you started there, you did take a lot of talent away from Hughes Software Systems. We're talking about no less than Prabir Datta, Abhik Saha, Tarun Singhal, Pradeep Kirnapure, Rakesh Mawa, and I'm sure a lot of others. Be that as it may, there is one name which stands out, and that's the crux of my question. There's one name which stands out, and someone who did not join Hughes Systique, and that is Avijit Ghosh. Why do you think that was the case? The reason I asked is that it was you who pulled Avijit Ghosh out of C. Dot to Hughes Software Systems, and yet when you started your own company, Hughes Systique, it never occurred to you to ask the eccentric engineering genius of Avijit Ghosh to join Hughes Systique?
Prashant, again, uh, I think I need to put the record straight. And again, this gives me an opportunity to clarify. All these people you named, right? I did not ask them to come and join Hughes Systique. Again, the reality is the opposite. A lot of people, when they got to know that Hughes is again starting in India, and this company is Hughes Systique, and this company is going to be in India, headed by Vinod Sood, and Anil and Pradeep and Ajay Kumar Gupta will be in US, right? I started getting a lot of calls, a lot of emails that, Vinod, we would like to be again part of Hughes. We would again like to work with you. So all these names, right, they approached me. They showed their keenness that we would, and and I think it was very, very natural and obvious because, as I said, the culture and the environment at FSS, and it had still not become Erisent, mind you, right? It became Erisent in 2006. It became, yeah, late 2006, I think. And this was all this was happening in early 2006, late 2005. Uh, and I said, yeah, if you are interested, I'll be happy because we were building the company, right? So there was no poaching. Okay, there was no in the sense that I was trying to hurt FSS by taking people intentionally. But in the industry, suppose a good engineer And obviously somebody who had worked with you very closely, right? He wants to change and he is excited about joining, right, your company. You'll be happy, right? And anyway, Prashant, if I had not taken them, I'm sure FSS would have lost them to other companies, because that was the kind of situation there. In fact, let me tell you, because we were a startup and we had only that much of business, right? There were so many people, okay, I had to refuse. So many engineering people, because all these people used to work for me either directly or I was their second or a third level manager. And in fact, Prashant, couple of my engineering heads, right, who are very close to me and very dear to me. In fact, for the next couple of years, they're very upset with me. They said, Vinod, लगता है कि आप ना HSS में हमसे खुश नहीं थे, या हमने आपकी मतलब एक्सपेक्टेशंस जो थी, वी डिड नॉट मीट योर एक्सपेक्टेशन, क्योंकि व्हेन यू स्टार्टेड HSC आपने हमें नहीं लिया. And really, I had to explain to them, yeah, in a startup, right? And based on the kind of business we have and what I see in the next 1 or 2 years, I can only take that many mid-level or senior people. That is one. And the second I told them was that I also want to be very sure that I am doing justice to somebody I am taking, that I have the right kind of role for that person in line with his or her experience. So I hope this answers your question. And again, coming to Abhijit, you are absolutely right. I was the one who took Abhijit from C dot, and in fact, I got Abhijit before Prabir and Pradeep from C dot. Prabir and Pradeep also are from C dot, if you know. And actually, again, coming back to your question, in fact, when we started Prashant HSS, I took a lot of people from C dot. So C dot also would have the same complaint, right? And C dot again was my organization. All these people, and in fact, I'll name some few more: Gulshan, CP Murli, Alok Vadera, Ajay Goel, Laha, Manish Raje, right? Mini Mehta, I got all of them from C dot to HSS, right? So I'm sure somebody in C dot also would have had the same kind of thing, that, oh, okay, but that is how it is. If somebody wants to leave, somebody wants to come and approaches you, and you are, you know about that person's capability and you think that there is a role for that person, right? Then it's a market dynamics, right? So that is how things happen. Now, in case of Abhijit, in fact, I still feel that in that particular case, I should have called Abhijit and asked him to come, because Abhijit on his own, unlike others, did not approach that I am keen, I want to get back to Hughes, I want to work with you, Vinod, again. And I was very clear, Shant. And in fact, again, you had asked me about my relationship with Mao and Adesh. In fact, Mao and Adesh, they knew that there is something called Hughes Systique, which is being started. Vinod is going to be heading that, right? So I had this, we had never discussed this openly, but I had this very unwritten kind of a agreement, I would say, with Adesh and Mao, that I'm not going to poach or do anything to hurt the company which I had built, even though now it was not Hughes. So in case of Abhijit, that was the reason. I would have been happy. And I still later on think, because Abhijit, as you said, is a genius, right? He's a maverick. And I would have been very happy to have him, and I miss him.
Excellent. Thanks for being candid over there. And I was actually not expecting you to be so candid, and I'm sure viewers are loving it. But coming to Hughes Systique, it must have been quite a challenge to start Hughes Systique. Surely it must not have been a bed of roses, because through the tough times of global economic meltdown and later COVID times, you had to steer the company. Would you like to walk us through your journey a little bit at Hughes Systique, and are you satisfied overall with what Hughes Systique has achieved so far under your leadership?
Thanks, Prashant, for asking me that question. And you are absolutely right. Uh, it has been a pretty tumultuous journey, I would say. As you know, we started in late 2005, early 2006, and as I said, unlike Hughes Software, which was 100% owned subsidiary of Hughes, right? Hughes Systique, we had Hughes as one of the investors and Next Wave as another investor. And they put in the initial money against some equity. And that was it. Beyond that, it was for us to run, manage the company, get business, make sure that we are paying the salaries first of every month, and so on and so forth. And to tell you, within 2.5 years of our starting, right, 2008 happened, right? The worst economic banking collapse in the world, right? And uh, Next Wave Wireless, which was the other investor, right? The second investor, the first was Hughes, they filed for bankruptcy. And suddenly, one fine day, right, we had this situation where we had almost 70, 80 member team which was doing work for Next Wave, right? And Next Wave had bet big on the WiMAX technology, which was the competitor to LTE, as you know. And they had filed for bankruptcy, and those 70, 80 people had no work, no business. Nobody was going to pay for them, right? But then we were very clear. That was one of the things which, so there were certain fundamental values, right, which we had decided amongst the founders that we will never compromise on. And that was one of those was that if it is no fault of that engineer or that employee, right, right, we are just because of the business, okay, or just because it is going to hit our bottom line, we are not going to fire or ask the employee to go. But to manage the situation, all of us in the management team, we took some salary cuts. We decided to forego our incentive, but we did not ask even a single employee, single engineer to leave. That was 2008, 2009. Okay. So anyhow, we came out of that. And then, if you remember, 2013, 2014, the entire telecom industry started consolidating, right? So, as you know, Nokia, Alcatel, Lucent, Siemens, right? These all were separate companies. And then these companies, they started consolidating, merging, acquiring each other, right? Alcatel and Lucent merged, it became ALU, right? And then Nokia acquired ALU and it became Nokia. Nortel shut shop. Motorola, right? What it was in the telecom world, right? Decided to, right, uh, stop a lot of their telecom portfolio. And we were primarily till then, till about 2013, 12, 13, we were a telecom R&D services company. And what we saw was that our entire universe of customers, right, has shrunk. And telecom industry, because it was going through this consolidation and it was going through a tough time in terms of investment into new R&D, new product development, there's not much investment happening. And companies like ours, which are services companies, right, depend on new product development, new R&D, right? So again, that was a tough time, but we went through that time, came out successfully. We decided that we need to broaden our portfolio, and that is how we started getting into enterprises and started pitching for digital services, digital projects for enterprises. And then 2020 happened, right? And 2020 with COVID, right, one of our largest customers, right, was in the travel and hospitality space. And that was the industry, right, which was shut down. And we again had 100+ member team doing a lot of digital R&D stuff for that customer. And they said you need to reduce this team from 125 to just about 30-40 people for whom we are going to pay. And again, true to our philosophy and values, we decided that all of us will go through some hardships. So that year we decided not to do a salary increase. Again, the senior management decided to forego their bonuses and their incentives. We even took some salary cuts amongst ourselves. But again, we did not even let one engineer go, or asked any one engineer to go. So we have gone through for a company which is of our vintage, right? We are in our 19th year, having gone through three very, very difficult crisis. I think we have done reasonably well. In fact, Prashant, sometimes I tell my team, and uh, sometimes we are very, very hard on ourselves, right? We say that, oh, we could have done this, we could have done that, right? But I tell them, yeah, look at it that in 18 years, right, we have gone through these three crises and we have come out strong. We are a profitable company. Year after year, we are generating cash, right? Unlike a lot of other startups, right, who celebrate their unicorn status, but they are still loss making, right? Other than the initial equity which we had taken from Hughes and NextWave, we have not taken any money. We are debt free, right? We are now a $50 million plus company. We are 1,000 people plus. And on more than that, I think what I remember is again Anil, few years back. Okay, every year, beginning of the year, we have our annual awards night and party. And as part of that, what I do is I address the entire company, okay, and go over the achievements of the past year, including the financials, or right, how much revenues we did, how much growth, what is our profit, okay, and so on and so forth, right? So I did that, and then what we do is after the awards, we ask Anil to come on the stage and do some closing remarks, and just hear what Anil had to say. Anil does not believe in giving long speeches, right? So he comes on the stage. He says, "Folks, I hope you guys are enjoying, and I'm very happy to hear what Vinod said that we have grown this much. This is our profit. But I want to ask you one thing. Okay? When you go back home after your work every day, are you happy? Are you able to sleep peacefully? Okay. In the sense that anything in office, okay, or your work gives you sleepless nights or gives you that stress. Okay. Answer me that question. And if you say you are happy, and you are able to sleep peacefully, that is the benchmark or the test for us that we have built a good company. So, Prashant, I would say you asked me this question that what do you think, Vinod, in terms of Hughes Systique? Have you done well, right? Are you successful? I think, okay, yeah, another yardstick, instead of a $50 million company, we might have been a 75, $80 million company, right? But then for doing that, if we made dozen of people unhappy or gave stress because of that to our folks, I think rather than that, I'm happy with what we have created. And I'm very proud of that.
Excellent, Vinod. I'm sure, not only you, everybody else around you is also very proud. So apart from telling us what will be the dominant technologies in next 20 to 30 years, because you are from engineering background, do tell us a little bit about your personal life as well, how you met your wife, what are your children doing, how you keep fit and smiling, and what makes you happy and content at this stage of your life, I dare say past 60. But start with the technologies.
Hmm. So you asked me 20, 30 years, right? Prashant, very, very difficult 20, 30 years, but let me say next 5 to 10 years, okay? I think biotech, advances in artificial intelligence, developments around molecular biology, genetics, gene therapy, I think all this will lead to significant advances and development around preventive healthcare. A cure for some of the non-curable diseases, especially a lot of cancers, lab-grown food, nutrition, advances in agriculture. I think another, in terms of the technology, what is going to evolve very rapidly and will be in focus is around uh, technologies around climate mitigation, the harmful impact of climate, right? Whether it is renewable energy, whether it is fuel cells, whether it is sustainable fuels, right? Whether it is things like drought resistant crops, whether it is technology for clean air and water. The kind of pollution we have in Delhi, right? Especially in the month of November, December, right? So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, technologies will evolve and develop to take care of some of these issues. Obviously, quantum computing, uh, around all this virtual reality, right? Mixed reality, augmented reality. And I think all these will come together. And what we will see is what is called as immersive reality. So I think there's going to be a lot of development around that. And another one which I think we are going to see a lot of development is around AI powered brain computer interface. So BCI, what is called as BCI. So use of AI in conjunction with BCI, in fact, will change the way we interact and use machines and computers. And you would have heard about Neuralink, Elon Musk's another company, right, which is doing some phenomenal, unbelievable stuff around BCI. So this is as far as technologies are concerned, I think. Other than obviously artificial intelligence, which everybody talks about. So I decided not to mention AI.
And please tell us something about your family, what makes you happy and content these days, what are your
So
children
you
doing, and so on.
asked me where did I meet my wife? Okay, so I met Indra at Hughes Software.
No kidding, no kidding.
Okay, yes, that's the reality. So in fact, Indra was part of the HR team, and she was the second person after Adesh in HR. So she joined HSS in 1993, And that is where I met. And in fact, almost all the people who got hired in 1993 and 1994, right? Their offer letters have been signed by Indra, and almost all of them, in terms of their HR interview, has been done by Indra. So she did a lot of that recruitment. And in fact, Abhik is 1994 IIT Kharagpur pass out. Okay, and Indra was part of the campus team which went from HSS to IIT Kharagpur, and she keeps teasing Abhik that, remember Abhik, you came for that interview midnight wearing a tie. So I met her in HSS. So that is another thing I want to thank Hughes for. Okay, uh, and we got married in 1994. Okay, we have two sons. My elder son Srijan, after his 12th, he went to Georgia Tech to do his bachelor's in computer science. And after his bachelor's, he worked with a startup which was doing some work in the area of agriculture, commodities, using AI, using the satellite data, predicting how the next crop is going to be. So this was 2017 when he started working in AI, and incidentally, his project also in BTech was on AI. So he decided to pursue his masters, went back to Georgia Tech, did his masters in machine learning, and currently he is at the JP Morgan AI Research Lab in New York, leading their AI machine learning initiatives. He's the lead there. My younger son, Shreyas, he, after again his school, went to UT Austin, Texas for his undergrad in computer science. After his grad, he worked with Facebook for 3 years in San Francisco Bay Area. And last year, he decided that enough of a large company, I want to experience working in a startup in a small company, and also want to move to New York because I want to live in New York, see New York. So he joined a startup in New York, and currently, yeah, he's in New York working for a startup. So that is what my family is in terms of what I do in my spare time. We, yeah, like to watch movies. We like to watch some TV shows. We also like to watch plays. So we try to watch a play once in a quarter, or if there is a music concert, okay, or a performance, we do that. We also like traveling, okay, seeing new places, okay. And other than that, I like reading all kinds of books, okay, fiction, non-fiction. And then in my spare time, what I do, and this is what I've been doing for last 10, 12 years, I try and help a lot of startups, founders, young founders, okay. And primarily founders who come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, founders who do not have a very high pedigree, in the sense they are not coming from very premier institutions, but who have great ideas, okay. And I help them. And similarly, Indra also helps a lot of startup founders, but primarily in the social sector. So that's what we spend whatever time we get, other than uh, our some of the other interests which I talked about.
Well, thanks a lot for that, Vinod. It was a great peek into your professional and personal life, and both have been, nazar na lage, wonderful. So, wish you all the best. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's been such a privilege talking to, as I said at the beginning of this interview, the annoyingly charming and shockingly capable interlocutor with us. I admit I took some liberties while asking the questions, and hope he forgives me for doing that, for my intentions, just like him, have been always good at heart. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been listening to the co-founder and managing director at Hughes Systique, Vinod Sood.
Thank you, Prashant. And let me say, you did not take any liberties. In fact, I'm thankful that you gave me a platform and you asked some of these questions, right? Which gave me an opportunity to put the record straight, okay? Uh, Tell the audience, right, in terms of what the reality was, some of the things which they did not knew. And obviously, if somebody had not asked me, right, I would not go and tell them that this is what actually happened, right? So thanks for for giving me the platform and opportunity to do that. And I really enjoyed. And I think when we started, we had planned for about an hour, but I think I had so many stories to tell you that I think it's almost 1 hour 45 minutes. And in fact, I could have continued for another hour or so. But yeah, maybe we will do a sequel to this.
Absolutely, Vinod. And thanks a lot to you. And the pleasure was all mine and that of all the viewers out here. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye bye.